The first carry-on packing mistake that could catch you off guard comes from some misinformation that has been going around online. And yes, I'm recording this from the beach because I'm literally on vacation right now. I just don't want you to make these mistakes on your next trip. In June 2025, a proposal passed in Europe to basically ban carry-on luggage fees. But what some of the clickbait articles and videos won't tell you is that there's still a bunch of steps that need to happen before this proposal passes into a law. And travelers who don't know any better might make the mistake of booking a flight assuming that their carry-on is included because of what they saw online, only to arrive at the airport and be surprised by a giant fee that could literally double the cost of their ticket in some cases. And to make things even more confusing, some airlines like Wizz Air, for example, actually say that their base fare includes a carry-on on their website. But if you look a little bit closer and inspect the actual dimensions of what this supposed free carry-on is, it's actually the dimensions of what most would consider a personal item that goes under the seat in front of you and not in the overhead bins. So mistake number 2 is getting confused on what airlines name things and what a carry-on actually is instead of going by the dimensions. Remember, these are examples of flights that touch Europe, but rules are constantly changing in the US and the rest of the world as well. So never make any assumptions based on what worked for you before. Another part of this 2025 proposal was to standardize the sizes for the free personal item bags that you get included in your ticket to 40 by 30 by 15 centimeters. This was meant to make things less confusing for travelers. But up until now, it's actually made things a little bit more confusing thanks to some misinformation online that you may have seen. That's because some rules actually have changed even though the actual proposal hasn't been passed into law yet. An association called Airlines for Europe, which includes several different airlines, have voluntarily agreed to proactively meet the new personal item size requirements. The confusing part is that some of these airlines have already implemented these changes while others are still rolling them out. The more confusing part is that this agreement and the proposal only standardizes the minimum sizing for personal items. Airlines are allowed to offer larger than this minimum size if they want, which means that there's still going to be different sizes even after this gets passed into law. But at least now you'll know what the absolute minimum size is in case you want to go out and buy a personal item bag that you know for certain will fit into all the different airlines, at least for Europe flights. There was a lot of fear-mongering and clickbait out there warning that you needed to go out and buy a new bag in order to meet these new size limits. But the truth is that several airlines have actually increased their size limits since all this has happened, including the notoriously strict Ryanair. So before throwing out your old backpack, first check what the specific size limits are for your airline when you bought your ticket, because it could have changed. Also, if your current backpack happens to be just a little bit too big, instead of throwing down a bunch of money on a new backpack, why not consider just not packing your current backpack all the way full? I tested the top personal item backpacks and crammed them into a bunch of different airline sizing bins, and I discovered that sometimes a too big bag is actually easier to fit into the bins than a right size bag that's jam-packed full with the same amount of stuff. That's because the smaller compliant bag is completely packed full and is completely dense and things can't really shift around. Whereas if you use a bigger bag and leave a little bit of extra space in it, now you have wiggle room to shift things around while you cram it down into the bin. If you want to see the results of the test I ran to find the best personal item, you can watch that one here. Anyway, since airlines make billions of dollars per year on luggage fees, they're not too happy on these regulation changes that could be coming. And because of this, more of them are cracking down and strictly enforcing what they can control. That means they're more likely to weigh your luggage or ask you to fit it in the sizing bin, and they're less forgiving if you're just a little bit over. So unless you like getting smacked with fees, it's smart to always have a plan B. My plan B is my Scotty vest, which I've been wearing on all my flights. Their jackets and vests have over 20 pockets, including a bunch of interior zipper pockets that are specifically designed for different uses. Like an RFID pocket for passports and wallets, a tablet pocket, camera pocket, phone pocket, and even a glasses pocket with an attached cleaning cloth that has a map of the jacket printed on it. Some of their models even fit an entire laptop. That means if my bags are ever a little bit overweight or I can't quite jam it in the bins, then I can just transfer some of my stuff out of the bag into my jacket until it fits in the bin. I escape the expensive fees, and then afterwards I just redistribute again. I used to get super stressed before flights, worrying that would be a little bit over the limits and have to pay these big extra fees. But now using a vest like this as my backup plan gives me just a little bit of peace of mind. You can get 20% off any Scotty Vest product by sending a message to their customer service saying that Project Untethered sent you. Big thanks to Scotty Vest for sponsoring this video. video. Next, if you travel often, you probably already know all of the basic items that are prohibited from your carry-on. But there's some new rules popping up in 2025 that are catching some travelers off guard. For example, airlines are cracking down hard on power banks this year. Southwest Airlines now requires any power bank that you use in flight to stay visible. That means no charging your devices while they're hidden in the overhead bin or in zipped up bags. And a bunch of Asian carriers have taken it even further. Some have banned in-flight charging entirely and require you to keep all power banks in your bag underneath the seat, not in the overhead bin. Only time will tell which other airlines will follow suit with these new rules in 2025. And the last thing you want to do is get caught off guard and board that 13-hour flight without checking that all your devices are already charged. Even with all the rule changes, I still recommend traveling with a power bank because I use these all the time when I'm actually in my destination, but it's just when you're on your flights, you have to be aware of the potential rule changes. And if you want to future-proof yourself, my buddy Nick over at the Away Together YouTube channel recommends using solid-state power banks, which are kind of like a new technology, I guess. And these are supposed to be safer, so if more airlines crack down in the future, these ones might continue to work. But that's just a hunch. Like this video if you've learned something so far, and subscribe if you want more tips on how to travel safer and smarter. Another carry-on packing mistake that I see all the time is assuming that packing cubes are always going to save you space. But I'd argue if you don't use them correctly, they actually could take up more space. Most people think that bigger packing cubes are better because you can fit more stuff. Wrong. If you have a giant cube, you have to pack it with tons of stuff to get any sort of compression effect. If it's not completely full, nothing is getting compressed, and now the cube material itself is taking up more space. Instead, I like to use multiple smaller packing cubes and stuff them to the brim. Not only does this built-in compression save you space, but it's also just easier to Tetris these smaller cubes in throughout the bag into your small different nooks and crannies. You can also go with those compression packing cubes, but after testing them a bunch, I've realized that I'm just too lazy for them. Technically, they can help, but the second zipper that you have to zip up after the cube is already full in order to compress it, it's just kind of a pain to use, and so I just prefer using smaller cubes and jamming them full and just having one zipper. Next, which of these two bags do you think is more likely to get lost or stolen? Obviously the more generic one, right? But most travelers still pick the most boring looking luggage possible. Plain black roller bags, basic backpacks, nothing distinctive whatsoever. Then they act surprised when someone accidentally grabs their bag in airport security, a lounge, a busy gate, or deboarding the plane. The solution is to simply make your bag impossible to mistake for someone else's. Bright colored straps, unique stickers, patches, or colorful covers. I will admit that I do use black backpacks because I think they look smaller and they're less likely to draw attention to yourself, but I always usually fill them with colored carabiners because I'm kind of a carabiner freak. Next, if you want to pack light and be able to actually fit all your clothes in your carry-on, the clothes materials that you choose matter way more than you think. Cotton would seem like an obvious choice because it's comfortable and it doesn't hold odor as much, but I personally think it feels super heavy and bulky, especially in hot climates, and it takes forever to dry compared to other materials. And when you're on the road, it's no fun having to pack or wear wet clothes because they took too long to dry. Denim is even worse. Jeans take up massive space in your bag and they dry slower than anything else you'll pack. For activewear, I'm a polyester spandex kind of guy. They're stretchy and comfy, and even though they tend to hold a little bit of odor, since they dry so fast, it's easy to wash them real quick and they're dry by the next morning. But my ultimate secret weapon is these. No matter how many sweaty travel days or workouts that I put these boxers through, they never really smell dirty after I let them dry out. Seriously, this one I've been using for a month almost every day, and this one is clean, and let's see if my wife can tell the difference. Smell, 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 smell. Which one's dirty, which one's clean? Which one's...
Same.
Hear that, guys? She said the same. Proof's in the pudding. These are made of merino wool, and since merino wool can be a little bit pricey, I always recommend first trying out boxers or underwear to see if you like it before blowing your budget on a full outfit. When it comes to travel gear, some expensive stuff is absolutely worth it, but a lot of it is just clever marketing designed to separate you from your money. My Scotty vest, I never travel without it. Merino wool boxers, worth every penny. But those vacuum compression bags or smart luggage with built-in power banks or foldable luggage closets or foot hammocks, these are all total gimmicks if you ask me. If you get a little creative, you can actually replicate a lot of expensive travel gear with stuff you already have lying around your house. I'll show you exactly how to do that with the 10 cheap packing hacks that I reveal in this video. You'll be surprised at the clever things that you can do with just a straw, toilet paper roll, duct tape, and chapstick tube. Like, subscribe, do the things. Love you. Bye-bye.